Welcome to Primetime Sportz. I'm Caleb Johnson. The city of Atlanta is currently the talk of professional sports this week, and no, I do not mean that 34-23 beatdown of the Cheeseheads from Wisconsin on Sunday night. I'm talking about the PGA FedEx Cup. Atlanta is host to the PGA playoff this year, which means an excuse for me to break out my clubs. My producers probably say otherwise. No, it's more like an excuse to throw a huge party in Atlanta and invite all the top stars in the city. Our own Chip Matthews wedged his way into the event earlier this week to see what all the excitement is about.
This Monday at the College Football Hall of Fame, the PGA Tour celebrated the start of the Tour Championship Week. The community celebration honored the top 30 PGA players, each one playing for a chance to win this, the FedEx Cup. The host of the event, Southern Company, was very happy with the turnout.
At Southern Company, we're thrilled at the way that this event is progressing. This is the third year. It's getting bigger every year. All of Atlanta is embracing it, and we're looking forward to tonight and beyond.
The turnout was great indeed. Some of Atlanta's most notable stars were definitely in attendance. Hawks forward Kent Bazemore, V103's Ryan Cameron emceed, and I even caught up with Hawks head coach Budenholzer.
Just here to celebrate the PGA Tour being in Atlanta and the FedEx Cup Championships this weekend at Eastlake. I'm a big golf fan. I love to watch these guys play and, to be close to them tonight and have a little fun.
There were Hawks and Falcons, and of course golfers too. After their introductions came the part many were waiting on, the performance of Atlanta's own Ludacris. Be sure not to miss out next year. From the College Football Hall of Fame, I'm Chip Matthews.
Now, when it comes to football, the Panther football team unfortunately just barely clawed their way out of Beaver Stadium last week, leaving behind a 56-0 final score. I'm joined today by the Deacon, David Schiele, football analyst and so many other things, but today we're going to talk football to try and, put the pieces of this team back together and figure out what went wrong and what we're going to do in the future. So, David, I've got to ask you, how do we move on from this Penn State experience, or can this team move on from this experience understanding how talented Penn State was?
Well, they can, and they have to, because, we have to understand Penn State was in the top 5 in the nation a week ago, and they absolutely ran straight through Georgia State. Now, here's the thing. Georgia State can take some positives away. If you look at the stat sheet, the score says it was lopsided, but the stat sheet might tell a little bit of a different story.
All right, let's take a look at those stats real quick. As we can see, look, Georgia State winning first downs, and that's a great thing to see, but total yards, big-time lopsided, as Penn State had 526 to Georgia State's 320. Now, David, I want to ask you, what happened when it comes to passing yards?
So you're going to see right there, 360 passing yards for Penn State. A big chunk of that is because of all the explosive plays that they had. They were going deep down the field. They had an 85-yard touchdown. They were absolutely explosive, taking apart that secondary for Georgia State. Now, here's the thing that I want to look at, though, Caleb. You see those rushing yards right there? 150 for Georgia State, 166 for Penn State. Georgia State was pretty close in that area, and 100 of those yards for Georgia State got to go to Taz Bateman. And it seems like Georgia State finally has this answer for this running attack that for years was kind of really stale. Georgia State is not that good of a running team traditionally, but we see 100 yards versus Penn State. That's encouraging. Taz Bateman, he's the one who gets my game ball for that. He's the only guy to score a touchdown for Georgia State this year. That's an encouraging number right there, and I think Georgia State finally has this answer about, can we have a guy who can stay on the field on first, second, and third down and run the ball for us? They just have to fix that passing like we showed before. Not explosive as Penn State, and 3 interceptions thrown from not Peyton Manning, but Connor Manning. My bad. There's so many Mannings out there, but Connor Manning throwing 3 picks, and that's because he was trying to force passes sometimes, and he was trying to get it to Penny Hart, who is the #1 receiver, and you see that the timing is a little bit off and the trust may be a little bit off, but then again, Penn State was a really good team, so we're talking about a good defense, and Georgia State just has some positives here, but passing, that's the one negative. They can move on, though.
Now, I want you to take a look, viewers, down at the time of possession. Very bottom of the screen is where you can see Georgia State actually dominated time of possession, 38 minutes to 21 minutes. But you've got to understand, that just means that Georgia State's defense has got to calm down on letting those big plays happen. As David alluded to, 85-yard touchdown pass. You can't allow those things to happen, especially when you're facing this Charlotte team that we will see this Saturday. Now, David, I want to ask you, when it comes to Charlotte, what types of challenges does this 49er team present?
Nothing but speed. I mean, they've got so much speed in their backfield. Hassan Klue, the quarterback, number 7. You know number 7 quarterbacks are dangerous, okay?
Definitely,
He's a dual threat. He's got a big arm. He can throw deep down the field just like Penn State was doing, and he's got a lot of speed, and he can use his legs, and he can break a game wide open. Had a rushing touchdown last year, or not last year, but last week. In fact, he's the only guy on the team with a rushing touchdown.
Oh. He's
got 2 of them, and he's the quarterback. Now, the running backs are good, though. Here's the thing. 2 guys, Robert Washington and Billy LeMay, they both weigh over 200 pounds. Both guys kind of like a Maurice Jones-Drew size, or maybe Tevin Coleman. They're really big. Honestly, this is a preview of the backfield from Charlotte. If I'm Klue and you're LeMay or Washington, and here's the thing that's dangerous. If I'm Klue and I'm going to pretend to hand off to you, if you're going through the middle, that's dangerous because you're a big guy that's going to go right through the trenches. But if I pull away and I'm going to the outside, that's a lot of speed on the outside. Georgia State has a lot to account for. That's a really big challenge. And don't forget that I could also fake this handoff and decide to throw. And we just saw Penn State be explosive on Georgia State last week.
Yes.
And if they can get some explosive throws, Charlotte can get some explosive throws on Georgia State this week, Georgia State is in trouble. But Georgia State does have a chance of winning this game.
Okay, so how does Georgia State win this team? Win this game, I should say. We've talked about a couple of things, but what specifically on Saturday do we need to see for Georgia State to win?
Now, like I said, Hassan Klue he's got a lot of speed, right? But he kind of has to because that offensive line isn't that good.
Okay.
They gave up 7 sacks. 7 sacks last week.
7.
They lost to North Carolina A&T because they gave up 7 sacks. And the other thing is, Hassan Klue's got that big arm, but sometimes he trusted a little too much. He's got 4 passing touchdowns, but guess what? 5 interceptions. He's thrown at least 2 interceptions in every single game this season. They're 0-3, and that's part of the reason why. He gave up a pick 6 last week. So Jerome Smith, Chandon Sullivan, they might be kind of foaming at the mouth. They can't wait to get their hands on one of those passes from Klue. So like I said, they have a chance. They've got to get a good pass rush. Georgia State has to make sure that running game of Benny LeMay and Robert Washington doesn't go off because we saw in Tennessee State, Georgia State gave up more rushing yards to Tennessee State than they did to Penn State.
Yes, and I think that's because that Tennessee State maybe had more of an offense matched to what we're going to see against Charlotte, which means, hey, linebackers, Michael Shaw, Trey Payne, we're looking at you guys to fill those gaps and make sure they don't bust it outside and take off for big gains. So I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, but game ball for this Penn State game.
Yeah, game ball for the Penn State game is going to go to Mr. Taz Bateman.
Okay.
And the reason why is because he had 100 yards rushing, and
Definitely.
I think, like I said earlier, Georgia State finally found their answer on who's going to be that running back. He also is the only guy to score a touchdown for Georgia State this year. He scored that lone touchdown against Tennessee State, so he gets the game ball for that game too. Now here's the thing. I want him to get the ball more against Charlotte, but I also want wide receiver tight end mix Ari Wertz to get the ball too.
Please.
I don't know where he's really been.
Yes.
I mean, he's on the field. He's healthy. We know he can block, but he's a big guy who can actually make some great catches. He's got great hands. He can run great routes. He needs to be more involved in the offense. If Georgia State really wants a chance to have this passing game succeed, Ari Wertz got to be more involved. And if they get him involved, Taz Bateman running the ball, the defense can get those stops, can get those turnovers that Klue has been really prone to this year. Georgia State can walk away with their first win this year on the road because we talked about it last week. Georgia State's not going to be at home for a long time.
Long time. But we're looking to see that first W in the win column this Saturday as those Panthers will take on the Charlotte 49ers. That game is at 6 p.m. And, well, the 49ers are winless. You can listen to the game on 103.7 The Fan with Dave Cohen. Now, Georgia State Sports Arena, typically where basketball is played, was host to quite a few volleyball teams this past week for the GSU Invitational. Reporter Justin DeWitt caught up with the team to try to get an understanding of this home court advantage they have.
After starting out the season with a losing record, the Georgia State Lady Panthers serve up a couple W's at the GSU Invitational.
GSU has played their first 10 matches of the season away from home,
Head coach Sally Paul-Heyman sends a strong message to her team as they return to the Georgia State Sports Arena.
There's nothing like playing at home. You know, the crowd, just to be able to protect your home court, our players were very ready to be at home. To open conference at home is a huge advantage for us also. Every point counts. So our conference is so close as far as rankings right now. So really, it's anyone's tournament.
Junior outside hitter Crystal Lee lays it out all on the line in the Georgia State Invitational as she carries her team to victory.
Crystal is an all-around player. She is our go-to outside. She plays all 6 rotations. She has done a fabulous job in the front court and the back court. And for her to be leading the conference in aces goes to show how hard she worked this summer on her serve and has really perfected her hand contact and making it difficult to serve.
The GSU Invitational marked the beginning of the Sun Belt play and will continue for the next 10 matches. For Primetime Sports, I'm Justin DeWitt.
Now, Celeste Friesen, the libero for this Georgia State volleyball team, had quite the defensive showcase at the tournament, earning herself a Georgia State Player of the Week award. Reporter Jasmine Presley popped in at practice to chat with Friesen about this award.
Georgia State volleyball is making quite the name for themselves after a 2-1 record from the home invitational that concluded this past weekend. Sophomore Celeste Friesen has been named Athlete of the Week by the Marines. With 45 digs in total, let's see how she did it.
One thing that I always focus on is trying to beat that hitter. So if the hitter's coming at me, I'm always like, I'm going to get that ball up and you're not going to get that kill. So it's almost like a competition between me and the hitter.
She had 22 digs against Davison and 14 digs against South Carolina State.
It's really exciting, and like that's also along with like the team, like they helped me and they supported me through all of that, so I'm not going to take all the credit.
Friesen and the Panthers will open up conference play this weekend against UL Monroe in Louisiana. For Primetime Sports, I'm Jasmine Presley.
Some of the men's golf team were back out on the links this week after their first tournament of the season was postponed due to that terrible Hurricane Irma. Junior Severin Sawyer came back with some hardware after winning his Georgia State debut at the Bridgestone Stroke Play. Sawyer shot 1 under par in the 2-round event and will now join his teammates in Phoenix, Arizona to compete in the Maui Gym Intercollegiate. Tee times for this Georgia State hosted event began this morning and run through Sunday. The winning team on Sunday will get to walk away with a rather memorable trophy. Check out this full-size surfboard that the winner will try to figure out how to fit on a plane and head back home. Now, our women's golf team is in Greenville, South Carolina, competing in the Lady Paladin Invitational this weekend. This rather new team will face some of its toughest competition at this tournament. However, hey, let's not forget, the veterans on this team were a part of the second-place finish in the Sun Belt Conference Championship back in the spring. Finally, Georgia State women's soccer begins conference play tonight at 5 p.m. in Monroe, Louisiana against ULM. They'll look to put a W in the win column, much needed right now after having 2 tough back-to-back losses. That will about wrap up today's episode. Today is my last at Anchor. Next week I'll be turning things over to Malik Brown. Excited to see what he will bring to this position. As always, I want you to like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter at Prime Sports with a Z. I'm Caleb Johnson. See you next week for more Georgia State sports content. Take care.